Sorry. Sorry for the technical hitch tonight. We just rang a little bit late, but we'll be okay. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee this evening. We're recording the meeting this evening using our webcast system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating area are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend the recording of the meeting should this be necessary to remain the proper running of the meeting. This is a meeting of the Council held in public. It is not a public meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by any ringtones. Anyone else attending to film or audio record any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disturb the meeting. Please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. If the fire alarm sounds, leave by the nearest exit and the officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Procedures for each item. The planning officer will present a report and committee members will ask any points of clarification. The meeting will allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on a particular application to do so. Each person will be invited to come forward to the table at the front of the public seating area and will have 3 minutes to give their views. Once all comments have been given, the meeting will then continue for the members of the committee to discuss the applications and reach a decision. No further comments may be made by members of the public. Thank you. Item 1. Have we any apologies for absence?
Yes, we have Councillor Blake and Councillor Sargent is substituting.
Thank you. Number 2, declarations of interest in lobbying. To receive any declarations of interest from members in accordance with paragraph 9 of the Members' Code of Conduct and declarations of where members have been lobbied or any application in accordance with section 5 of the guidance notes on regularity matters, the role of members and officers. Have we had any?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So yes, I've got a non-pecuniary interest in items 2 and 3 because my residence is approximately half a mile west of that development.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Is there any more? Councillor Myers.
Thank you. The application for... Sorry, just scrolling. The FaceMed one, I was originally sat on the committee when the decision was made, so I'd just like to declare that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, any more? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I was also on that committee with Councillor Myers.
Thank you. I've wished to been lobbied on item 4 as well. Thank you. Councillor Sargent.
On a previous application, I have made comment that I've not been lobbied on this application, and I haven't been lobbied.
Which application is that? Item 4.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Schrader.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've been lobbied on items 5 and 6, and I called them in. And as everyone else has, I was also on the committee for item 4. Obviously, I'm not on the committee now, but I thought I'd declare that anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. We continue now to item 3, which is the minutes. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, correction. It's items 5 and 6 that I have my non-pecuniary interest in. I think I gave you the wrong number before.
We make a note
Apologies.
of that, Councillor
Thank you.
Baker. Thank you. Item 3, the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 6th of March. Those that were actually on there can put their hands up, but I think it was Councillor Blake, but he's not there, so it's Councillor Sargent, Councillor Myers. Yes, yes. So, yes. So, can I have the votes for that, please? Those that have been lobbied. Thank you. Oh, those against, that would be all of us that have not been on the planning committee. Yes, yes. Stay.
No against, so we need to find out who else is abstaining.
Oh, I see.
You know,
Okay.
like, if there's any abstentions.
Those that are abstaining, yes.
So anybody that's left, yeah?
That's 4. Thank you. So we go straight to item 4, which is a full proposed single-storey infill extension car park, alterations, access, works and landscaping, amended plans at FaceMed Cosmetical, Medical and Dental Centre, Grace Hill, Billericay, Essex, CM11 2XP.
Thank you, Chair. This application is before members of the Planning Committee due to a previous application for proposed single-storey extension was refused by members. This is a site location plan. The application site, which is outlined in red, comprises an existing medical centre, parking and a rear garden space. The rear garden area with outbuildings was granted planning permission to be used in association with the medical centre in 2022. This was formerly part of Glenhaven, which is situated at Oak Avenue. In terms of the aerial slide, to the north is Crays Hill Post Office and a shop and a pedestrian crossing. To the east is Springfields, a neighbouring residential dwelling, and to the southwest are existing residential dwellings which are located off Oak Avenue. In terms of the site photos, the first one shows the rear elevation of the existing building at FaceMed and also part of the neighbouring property at Springfields. The second photograph shows the existing outbuilding, so the proposed infill extension will be from the rear of FaceMed of the existing building towards that outbuilding. On the next slide, this is a view towards Springfields and shows boundary treatment between the two, between the application site and the neighbouring property. And the second photo is a view from the application site out towards Oak Avenue, which is another access. And this existing access will be closed as part of the proposed development. This plan shows the site plan of the proposed infill extension. So the application proposes the erection of an infill extension which will connect the existing building to an existing outbuilding. The proposed extension will be set off the shared side boundary with the neighbouring property at Springfields by approximately 4 metres. The existing car parking spaces will be realigned and the existing access off Oak Avenue will be closed. The floor plans show the proposed accommodation of the infill extension, which will comprise of an entrance area, a surgical admission and discharge reception area, plant room and dirty instruments room. The elevations show that the infill extension will have a flat roof of a height of approximately 3.1 metres and will have 4 roof lights. The length of the proposed new infill extension will be approximately 9.5 metres. No windows are proposed to the rear elevation of the infill extension, and the proposed external materials to be used for the walls is brick. The next slide shows the previously refused scheme. So the proposed extension in the scheme was refused by members. The scheme proposed the removal of the existing outbuilding and replacing it with a new single-storey rear extension. This proposed extension had a proposed length of approximately 17.2 metres, and the height was approximately 3.5 metres, reducing down to approximately 3.1 metres. And this application is currently at the appeal stage. In terms of consultations, 16 properties were notified. The consultation exercises generated 4 neighbouring responses, and a summary of the objections is listed on page 21 of the agenda pack. The key considerations for this application relate to the principle of the development, the design of the development, its impact upon neighbouring occupiers, and the impact on trees and car parking and highway safety. In terms of the principle of the development, policy BAS BE22 of the adopted Basildon Local Plan and also paragraph 97 of the NPPF are considered to be the most relevant to assess the proposed development, as these discuss healthcare and community facilities. It is considered that the principle of development is acceptable, subject to the design of development and the impact on neighbouring properties, impact on trees and also car parking considerations. In terms of design and layout, the scheme has been amended through the course of the application, and in that the roof of the extension has now been designed with a flat roof instead of a proposed pitched roof. This revision has reduced the overall bulk of the extension and its impact to the existing character of the site. In addition, the proposed extension will be an infill extension from the main building to the existing outbuilding. Thus, only part of the development will be of a new construction. Glazing to the front elevation has been omitted, and its design is considered appropriate in this location. In terms of impacts on the adjoining occupiers, the proposed infill extension will be set off the shared boundary with Springfields by approximately 4 metres. Due to the modest height of approximately 3.1 metres, the proposed infill extension is not considered to adversely affect this property's residential amenities in terms of loss of light or overbearing issues. Your environmental health officer has no objections to the proposed development. The proposed infill extension will also be set approximately 19.6 metres from the rear properties at Oak Avenue. After fully considering the objections received and that your environmental health officer did not object to the proposed development, it is not considered that the proposed infill extension will adversely affect neighbouring properties' residential amenities and has overcome the previous refusal reason. In terms of the impact on trees, additional trees were to be planted along the shared boundary with Springfields, but due to objections from the neighbouring property, these trees will not be planted, but instead a landscaping condition has been suggested to increase the biodiversity of the application site. Your tree officer had no objections to the proposed development and subject to the applicant following recommendations within the submitted tree survey. A landscaping condition has been included to ensure that native trees are planted to increase their biodiversity. In terms of car parking and highway safety, Essex County Council Highways Officer had no objections to the proposed scheme, subject to the conditions which are outlined on page 31 of the report. In terms of the planning balance, it is considered that the proposed infill extension has been designed to respect the existing built form and will not adversely affect neighbouring residential amenities. It will provide sufficient car parking on site, and as such it is considered that the proposed infill extension has overcome the previous reasons for refusal in terms of its scale and massing issues and neighbour impact. The application is therefore recommended to members for approval, subject to conditions on page 29 to 31 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Miranda. First of all, can I call Andy Wells, she's the planning agent. to actually speak on this? Pardon? Sorry, is there any clarification?
Thank you, Chair. Just based on the landscaping point where you said that the new trees were not going to be going in, but yet a condition has been put in to plant native trees. Just wanted a bit of clarification over that, please.
Through you, Chair. Yes, sorry, the proposed trees were to be planted along the boundary with Springfields, but there were concerns from that neighbouring property, and as such, trees will be planted within the actual application site. If I probably towards the other side of that existing outbuilding.
Clarification for Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just relating to the fact that on page 19 it says that we've got a refused application that's in where the appeal's in progress at the moment. I mean, what happens if, say, that appeal then gets passed, but this application is also passed this evening? Will it be up to the developer which one they build, or will the committee have any say on which one actually gets?
Through you, Chair. No, if the appeal is allowed, and this also gets allowed as well, granted, the applicant will be able to choose whichever one they would wish to build. We won't have, once an application is approved, it's basically, that's it really.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Have you got any more questions? No? Councillor Terry Sargent.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just a question on the actual property itself at the medical centre. Is it a private centre or does it do private and NHS? I just wanted to know that. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. It does do NHS as well. Services. It is both, sorry, yes.
Anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask the officers? No? So we're going back to Andy Wells, the planning agent. Sorry about that.
That's all right, thank you. FaceMed Medical, Dental and Surgical Centre is a purpose-built healthcare facility that opened in 2017 to the community after achieving approval from the Care Quality Commission, who regulate healthcare providers in the UK under the Health and Social Care Act 2008. FaceMed currently provides healthcare facilities and services to patients within the locality and wider Essex area. The aim of this application is to join the current medical centre to the existing storage unit, which benefits from the same planning use. The ability to link both buildings would provide much needed space for disabled access and discharge waiting area for all NHS surgical patients. These patients are wheelchair dependent. This would also provide the medical professionals employed by the centre to carry out their duties in the safest and most efficient way. The medical centre supports the integration of health and social care within the community. It is committed to serving the long-term health needs of all local patients. Additionally, the centre employs highly skilled and qualified medical professionals who live locally. The proposed infill extension scheme is reduced in size and scale from the previous proposal, and both the MPPF and the local plan support the proposed development, which is sympathetic to its surroundings. It's simple in form, providing a link from the main building to the existing store. It's set into the ground and has a flat roof, so only the top metre or so of the extension would be visible above the boundary fence to the surrounding properties. Even this would barely be seen due to the existing vegetation, both within the site and adjacent gardens and the proposed landscaping. Furthermore, the building is set in from the side boundaries by 3.4 metres from the Firs and 4 metres from Springfields. It's therefore subservient to the existing buildings in form and scale. It would also not harm or visual or residential amenity due to its small scale, separation from the adjacent properties, low height and the surrounding trees and hedges limiting views of the extension. The proposal provides very generous spacing between the neighbouring residential properties, and its low height means it would not be overbearing in any way. The total floor area is 83 square metres. With the proposed infill extension, an additional 5.5 metres of built form on the site. So with the proposed extension, percentage of land at the site retained with no building on it would be 77.5%. This significantly exceeds that of adjacent and nearby sites in both residential and commercial use. So it's not overdevelopment. And only a very small section would actually be visible from the public realm. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy Wells. Thank you for keeping to the 3 minutes as well. I'd like to call John Edgecombe. Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. You've got 3 minutes, okay?
Ready to go, is that? Yeah. Good evening, councillors. My property, Springfields, is situated next to the proposal site immediately to the east, and I've been resident there for the past 46 years. Throughout my time in residence, the proposal site has been either an orchard or a residential garden space. I would reiterate that a very similar planning application, 23-005-3534, was rejected by the Planning Committee in January by reason of its design, scale and massing, and it would result in an overbearing impact on the residential amenities of neighbouring properties, and it is for these reasons that I oppose the current application. My various objections to the proposal were fully set out in my 5-page letter to the Planning Officer on the 28th of December 23. The height of the new proposed structure is the same as that of the aforementioned rejected proposal, and the mass scale and overbearing effect of a stark and continuous brick timber clad elevation along the greater part of my garden west boundary would result in a significant and demonstrable impact upon the enjoyment of my property and its garden environs, as well as the similarly impacting the other surrounding properties. The proposal represents a substantial overdevelopment of the site, which would increase the commercial footprint by over 100% when measured against the current FaceMed building. The plans indicate expansion of the plant room to twice its current size, and which facility encroaches right up to my boundary within a few metres of our lounge dining area. This is a breach of relevant planning guidance, quite apart from the obvious noise issues that will arise. Furthermore, I do not believe the extent of the proposed enlarged plant room can be justified in relation to the extent and purpose of the extension proposed, unless required for a further phased extension. There has been much exaggeration and distortion of facts by the applicant and their advisors, who in their application documents have referred to Craig's Hill as a town centre, referred to our single village store as a parade of shops, and referenced the village as a mixed-use commercial and residential area. Craig's Hill is very clearly a residential village, and the applicant is simply a commercial enterprise seeking to expand its operations into the midst of this residential area. As indicated in the substantially enlarged plant room, I am very sceptical this application represents the full extent of their ambitions for expansion. There has been a programme of development by stealth, i.e. a change of use to storage, followed by subsequent planning applications. There also seems to be breaches of planning approval in respect of 22-01292 full. The site is being used as an auxiliary car parking area. I have noticed on numerous occasions up to 5 or 6 vehicles on the site. The planning approval was the existing garage and outbuildings to be used for storage, with all deliveries to be made via the pedestrian gate to the rear of the FaceMed current premises. Vehicles are accessing the site via Oak Road, which is a private road. If this development were to be approved, where would these vehicles go? There is certainly no scope for parking on roads in the immediate vicinity. This is further evidence that the proposal represents a very substantial overdevelopment of this site, and I believe that, as with its predecessor 23-00353, this current application should be firmly rejected. To allow this site to receive full commercial status...
Can I interrupt you there, Mr Edgecombe? You've gone over your 3 minutes.
All right.
So if you can just finish.
I've got two or three lines to go. Is that all right? Yeah, thank you. To allow this site to receive full commercial status would afford no protection to the number of large trees that currently flourish on the site and provide natural habitat to many birds and wildlife. I trust that the committee will recognise this application as widely flawed and as a wholly inappropriate proposal for this very confined site, which would result in significant and considerable harm to my own and other adjoining residential properties, and the committee will see fit to recommend its refusal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Press the button again.
We have no more speakers, so I'm going to open it up to the members. Does anyone like to speak on this? Emma?
Hi there. Just a point of clarification on Mr Edgecombe's testimony. Is Crays Hill listed as a residential area with the council versus a mixed use area?
Yes, through you, Chair, is a mixed use area.
Any more questions? Councillor Harrison.
Not a question, but I've got a... Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I just want to say how poor it is really from the developer to bring an application in while the previous application still in appeal. I appreciate some of the changes that they've made in this application to improve it and listen to the members' concerns from the 9th of February, and as people who would have watched that meeting would know that I was in favour of this in the first place due to the need for the NHS for an NHS site in the area to be expanded and improved. But yeah, I've got to say that it is poor that they're saying that they're making these changes to improve it and to listen to members' concerns. But then if that appeal is granted, then they'll surely just quite obviously go with the original application that they wanted in the first place, and this is effectively a hypothetical application that we're sat here listening to. But obviously we'll still need to consider it fully in case that appeal is refused. But yeah, just speaking on the item, as I said, that we do need better NHS services in Basildon, especially in areas like Crays Hill, and so yeah, I'll be voting in favour of this application for the same reasons I voted in favour for the previous one in February.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Sargent.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. In relation to the residential and business works of Crays Hill, it is primarily a residential area because the only business there is the shop and the public house, unless there's a few other bits and pieces. There is a school there, but it's primarily a residential area, and the actual building itself is a private operation. It does probably take NHS, but it's not like a doctor's surgery where residents can go along and get treatment. It's one of those that you're elected. It's on an elected process from a hospital that you would go there and get treatment. So I know that. I don't disregard the fact that it is an important medical centre to have anywhere, but as I say, it doesn't really serve the residents as per we are thinking of. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Myers.
Thank you very much, Chair. When this first came to when it first came to committee in January, I actually voted in favour of the original application, mainly due to its benefits in the NPPF for healthcare and other reasons for that. I felt that the mitigations that were in place could handle it and tackle it. As was said on that night and at the subsequent meeting where we deferred it for reasons for refusal, I know a lot of members who aren't here now, who sit on planning committee, were very upset about the fact that 2 applications came in at the same time for the same proposal. So I agree with Councillor Harrison here, where if this was allowed, I would like to say to the applicant that if you win your appeal on the larger scheme, respect this council, don't do it. Do one which may be smaller, which I can agree with being smaller, and I think that'll just be courteous to us going forwards. So, based on how my voted before consistency, and it is a smaller proposal, and of course I have no reason to reject this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Is there anyone else? No more comments? Oh, Emma.
Chair, I just want to ask a question. Am I able to go back to speakers to ask for points of clarification? Yes? No? No? No. Okay. No problem. Okay.
Yes, you can ask officers. Yeah.
So, Chair, through you, the infill extension, would that necessarily automatically mean more traffic, more parking, or is this, extension just for the internal operations of the commercial business?
Amanda?
Sorry, through you, Chair. So I was just trying to change the site, the plans to try and show the floor space. Basically, the floor space is to provide a larger reception area to provide for wheelchair disability access. So it's and for some storage and for dirty instruments, things like that. So it's not going to make, I suppose, more facilities. It's just to provide an adequate access to the part of the building which is going to be used for sort of operations, for like ankle operations. They're what they're hoping to do, and that's part of the NHS as well. So so no, I think is the answer to that question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to make a few comments as well. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? No? Right. The NHS, I'd like to ask a question to Miranda. Do this FaceMed get referrals from the NHS? Can you tell me?
Through you, Chair, if you just bear with me a minute, I'll just look through the report and see. Yeah, so page 25 of the agenda 6.1.4, it says that FaceMed offers a spectrum of medical services that promotes optimal health and wellness, both NHS and private. And in addition to NHS and privately funded healthcare, their centre is registered as a provider of surgery for hand, foot, ankle and skin surgery with private health insurers. I'm just trying to see if they are... I'm not 100% of the actual ins and outs because we're as a planning officer, we'll have to look at the planning merits of the actual building itself. So the exact referral system I'm not aware of, I'm afraid.
Thank you. And also, I mean, public health haven't got a problem with this. Highways have got no parking problems with this.
No, Chair, no.
And I do notice that the area around Crays Hill haven't got any dentists. I don't know whether it's NHS or it's private dentist. Don't know, but we should be looking at trying to get more dentists. We haven't got a lot of dentists. So that would be one of the reasons that I think that I would vote for this. Nothing else. Thank you. We're going to the vote now for the members. All those in favour, please show. Is that? Yes. Yes. Now can I see anybody that's against? Okay. That's one against. No abstentions is the no. So this planning application has been granted. Thank you. Item 5, which is proposed removal of surface car park to enable the construction of 2 semi-detached houses with associated landscaping, parking and refuse storage at 89 High Street, Billericay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, as you've just alluded to, yes, this is an application at 89 High Street, Billericay. I would draw your attention to an update sheet that's circulating just to bring your attention to the fact that we've received 5 further neighbour objections and some minor changes to the proposed conditions. Councillor Harrison, have you got an update sheet? I've got a spare one. Okay. So the application site comprises the rectangular shaped tarmac surface car park of the former Lloyds Bank premises at 89 High Street, Billericay. This is on the west side of the High Street, north of Rose Lane. The car park can accommodate about 11 vehicles and comprises a tree belt to the perimeter. The site is located within Billericay Town Centre and conservation area. There's an aerial photo of the site in question, sort of the centre bottom. To the north and west are private dwelling houses accessed off of Rose Lane. To the east is Squire House, a 3-storey mixed-use commercial residential building with approval for a further floor in the roof. To the south is the restaurant Ask in a Grade 2 listed building. Rose Lane is a narrow private lane that serves the former bank and 5 dwellings. These are some site photos just showing the front and rear views of the bank and its car park relative to Rose Lane and Squire House. Lloyds Bank have occupied the site since the 1950s and vacated it in November 2022. There's a few more photos from Rose Lane, just showing it in relation to the neighbouring houses, along with a view of the car park, the subject of the application, with Squire House on the right there. A couple more views. This just shows the application site in relation to the dwellings behind Wren and Willow Cottage, along with the tree belt that separates those sites. And on the right is a view of from one of the flats in Squire House, first floor level, looking over the looking towards the rear of the site, over the back of 89 High Street. In terms of the site plan, this is the proposed site plan. As you can see, it's 2 pairs of semi-detached houses with parking, refuse and cycle stores and small gardens. These are the proposed ground and first floor plans. Both 3-bedroom dwelling houses. There would also be additional bedroom in the top floor, as per these plans, which show the roof plan as well. These are the proposed elevations. It's sort of a 2.5-storey scale over 3 floors. It's sort of inspired by traditional sort of gable forms that are typical of the high street. The houses are intended to be finished in white weatherboarding to the upper floors over grey brickwork on the ground floor with slate roofs. Each would comprise a chimney stack. Windows on the rear elevation have been kept to the minimum to minimise overlooking of the dwellings behind. These are the proposed side elevations, so you can see it's sort of larger at the front and then it drops down at the rear. A few computer-generated images, just showing it as you would see it from Rose Lane and relative to the proposed extended building at Lloyds Bank to the right, which is subject of a second application being considered by members tonight. And at the bottom left is it relative to, I think that's called Gatehouse, another two-storey house with accommodation in the roof. A few more computer-generated images, just showing it relative to Rose Lane. And these just show it in relation to the neighbouring sites in terms of the distances. And this slide also shows it in relation to the dwellings behind, in terms of the distances and relationship to a 25-degree rule in the Essex Design Guide. So in terms of consultation responses, we consulted 39 properties together with undertaking a site and press notice. The consultation exercise generated 18 responses, primarily objections from 11 addresses from residents in Rose Lane and Squire House, and also from Billericay District Residents Association. A summary of the objections are listed on page 39 of the agenda pack and the additional objections identified in the update sheet. So in terms of the key issues for this application relate to the principle of the development, its design, scale and impact upon the character and appearance of the wider conservation area and upon the setting and significance of designated heritage assets such as listed buildings and the wider conservation area, impact upon adjoining occupiers, car parking and highway safety impacts, impact on the viability of the town centre and impact on trees. In terms of the principle of the development, the application relates to a vacant private car park which would be regarded as previously developed land for planning purposes within a sustainable town centre location. The principle of development of the site would therefore be considered acceptable. Backland development has been permitted to the rear of a number of other premises in the High Street in recent years, including the former Barclays Bank building at 69 High Street, where there's now a development called Darcy Court and Darcy Mews, amongst several others. In terms of its design and scale, this takes its cues from existing and past traditional buildings within the High Street that comprise prominent gable roofs, weatherboard in brick and slate materials in buildings of 2 to 3 storeys in scale. The entrance porches will be recessed in a contemporary take on an overhanging jetty typical of medieval buildings. The result will be a modern contemporary building, but of a traditional form and scale that follows the design guidance advocated in the Billericay Conservation Area Management Plan. It would also not be over-dominant in the street scene context, appearing no higher than 89 High Street, and is proposed alongside the 2.5-storey scale of the adjacent dwelling Gatehouse in Rose Lane, with good spacing in between. Although comprising shallow gardens, these are of a size in excess of that now advocated in the Essex Design Guide for higher density housing. The County Heritage Officer raises no objection and advises that the proposal will cause no harm to the significance of the conservation area or to nearby listed buildings, subject to the use of high quality materials and submission of window and door samples that can be controlled by condition. In terms of the impacts of adjoining occupiers, as I've alluded to, we have received several objections from nearby residents in Rose Lane and Squire House, mainly concerned about potential overshadowing, overlooking or over-dominance. The application is accompanied by a daylight and sunlight assessment. The intervening tree belts and good distance of the front of dwellings behind are compliant with the Essex Design Guide, Building Research Establishment guidelines that seek to minimise potential for overshadowing and over-dominance, notwithstanding an acknowledged change to the surrounding residents' outlook through development of what is currently an open, undeveloped site. To prevent overlooking, the narrow secondary bedroom windows proposed in the rear elevation can be required to be fitted with obscure glass controlled by a condition. Conditions controlling noise and construction hours are also proposed with any development site, and also with any development site a degree of disruption can be expected to occur for a short period of time. In terms of car parking, at the moment it provides 11 car parking spaces serving the former bank, which will be lost. 3 parking spaces would be provided, 1 for the dwelling house 1 and 2 for dwelling house 2. This is, however, considered acceptable for a sustainable town centre location in accordance with the Council's parking standards. No objection is raised by the Highway Authority. Cycle parking and provision of residential travel packs to promote sustainable transport are proposed by condition. Residents have raised concerns regarding the narrow nature of Rose Lane, a private road that lacks turning space. Only the future residents of the two proposed houses would have access to the lane to park and turn out from their respective sites, being aware of the limited parking within those plots. The refuse service has raised no objection and advised they will collect from the site as per normal curbside collections. A proposed build-out of pavement to Rose Lane has been discounted by the Highway Authority as not being required to make the development acceptable. In terms of the impact on the town centre, the site has been occupied by a bank for the last 70 years, which along with several other banks in the High Street have recently closed following changes to banking practices. The site is vacant with no prospect of being reused as a bank. The car parking spaces that make up the site are privately owned, previously used in association with the former bank, and not publicly available to neighbouring residents or other users of the town centre. The loss is not considered to impact adversely on the viability of the town centre. In terms of the impact on the trees, the Council's Arboriculture Officer has been consulted and raises no objection. The root spread has been found to be fairly limited and not extend significantly under the existing impermeable tarmac surface. The trees will be retained as part of the development and protected during the course of the development. So in terms of the planning balance, we've identified that the provision of the proposed houses would contribute moderately in favour of the scheme, which would contribute towards the Council's 5-year housing land supply. There would be a moderate positive impact in terms of the impact on the conservation area, as it would preserve the setting and character of the wider area. Moderate positive economic benefits, limited social impacts, and it would involve a moderate positive benefit of the efficient reuse of a vacant town centre site. This is against the minor negative impacts from the change to outlook for neighbouring residents and the loss of private car parking spaces. The application is recommended to members for approval, subject to the conditions on pages 51 to 55 of the agenda. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Officer Humphreys. Clarifications, is anyone? Councillor Myers.
Yeah, just a quick one, Mr. Humphreys, is with the council's housing land supply, how can we give two semi-detached houses moderate weight in an area where, you know, look, I've got Google Maps on here. It just seems to be very strange in the area, you know, moderate or less than significant weight for that. Because I mean, there's going to be applications flowing in for 200, 300, 400 houses, etc., etc. But how can you give moderate weight to the housing land supply for just two semi-detached houses? Thank you.
Insofar as that they're two family houses, so I'd give a bit more weight than if they would say just a single flat, maybe limited weight, but
I mean, in terms of the weight given, additional to most of our delivery we've had over the past few years has been on small site delivery. So as such, it's moderate weight because that's two additional units we wouldn't have had. So it is moderate weight. It would be, and if it was a larger scheme, we would give it a more significant weight. So it's significant weight for a large scheme. It's a moderate weight for this scheme. We're delivering at the moment on small scale sites. We've only got a few large scale sites coming forward. So that's our proportional weight. It's not in the green belt, so it's not a material consideration. It's a material consideration just making this decision, but it doesn't go into making that step into inappropriate development appropriate. So I think moderate rate's the correct weight to attach to it.
Councillor Mike Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm with the officers that their recommendation to approve includes all of the information contained within the late submitted 5 objections we've been supplied with tonight? I'm thinking in particular of the apparent requirement. I'll read from the paper if I may. Without a designated right-of-way, vehicles will not have the ability to turn around or manoeuvre safely within the narrow private lane. So my understanding is that would require vehicles to reverse out of this lane onto Billericay High Street.
Thank you, Councillor. I mean, that has been considered. I think that was raised as part of the objections of the earlier objections that we received. Yeah, it's a private lane. there would be separate rights of access by the bank or the future occupiers to use Rose Lane. I understand that the residents own the lane, but there's no right to stop within it. So those residents that would occupy these two dwellings, they would go there knowing that they can park and reverse out of their site into the lane, but not to park within it. But yeah, I do appreciate it's where it's located, and it's a private lane. But as a private lane, it would be down to the owners and the applicants to agree that and make sure they've got the legal rights to access that site, separate from planning.
Sorry, can I just come
Yes,
back on that?
of course.
I'm not clear really whether there is a highway issue. Well, if it is correct to say that the residents of these new dwellings would need to reverse onto a main road, and if that is correct, whether that is a highways issue. Sorry, if you could just clarify that.
I can clarify that point. So, you just turn your microphone off.
Sorry.
The land is so the site, the road is unadopted. So therefore, the highway authority don't control the road. So the only road that's controlled is the high street. So that road is uncontrolled by them. The only thing that normally, and they haven't requested in this case, is they require vehicles enter the highway in a forward gear. But because the road is unadopted, it's a private road. There's no requirements that we'd normally require. Everything you've just spoken about we'd normally require, but in this case we can't require because it's not adopted. So that's the difference. You've got unadopted and adopted roads. Normally, unadopted roads are sort of in the plotlands. You very rarely get them within built-up areas, but we have got a few unadopted or private lanes, and that's just the difference. They're not adopted by the highway authority. Therefore, the highway authority have no control over them, and therefore the comments we've got back from the highway authority are very limited.
You happy? Councillor Sargent.
Just following on from that, Chairman, does that mean, those residents will use that road and they will have to reverse out? So does that mean that the council has no responsibility for, if this is passed this evening, you know, there is potential risk there, isn't there? Most definitely.
Could I come in there, Councillor? The existing, obviously it's an existing car park, so cars can, with the way it's laid out, cars would reverse into Rose Lane and then drive out in a forward gear onto High Street. The same with this, they would drive in a forward gear and then reverse out into Rose Lane and drive out onto High Street. But yeah, it is recognised there's only 3 parking spaces to serve the 2 houses, but yeah, that would comply with the council's parking standards for a town centre.
Emma?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Would we know what price band these houses would be in? Obviously, taking into account it's Billericay High Street, very, exclusive point area, but would it be good to know what kind of price point we're looking at?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we wouldn't have any regard to that in our planning considerations, but I appreciate it's a town centre, Billericay High
No,
Street.
just, it isn't actually a relevant question that you asked, so we can't actually bring that up. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you.
Can I just ask, you're saying it's not an adopted road, right? So do the residents actually own that road if it's not adopted?
Yeah, I understand it's privately owned by residents in Rose Lane.
They all have a share in the road?
As I understand it, yeah, but that
It's
would
a
be
bit like a plotland area, isn't it? Like Christine Lyons has said. So, you know, if anything wants to be done, the residents have to be consulted on it.
Councillor Larkin, so from a planning position, obviously what we look at is the planning matters. Any lawful covenants or landowner ownership issues are not a matter for the local planning authority. So as far as we're concerned, what we're interested in front of us today is the planning unit, which is the area outlined in red, that's a planning unit. If they cannot build the scheme because they haven't got the right covenants to allow access along Rose Lane, it's not a matter for the local planning authority. I'm really sorry, we can't get involved in land ownership issues or covenant issues. So as far as we're concerned at the moment is that, as far as we're aware, the development can come forward, and the development is for those developments in that area. Now, if Rose Lane residents say that it can't come forward, that's a covenant issue for the future developer of those flats, and not for the local planning authority.
Thank you. No more clarification, so we go straight into asking Gardner Hanson, the planning agent, to come and speak for us. Can I just remind you have 3 minutes?
Yes, thank
you,
you, Chair. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. On behalf of the applicant Clara 89 Limited, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Gardner Hanson. I'm from Tor & Co. We're the planning agents responsible for the application, and I'm with the applicant here, Craig Gray from Clara Homes. So following extensive engagement with your planning officers over the past few months, we're very pleased that your officers have made a recommendation for approval this evening. The proposed development comprises the first of 2 adjacent schemes, which will be presented to yourselves this evening. This specific application proposes the erection of 2 semi-detached family-sized houses within the rear surface car park, whereas the next application seeks partial change of use and extension of the former Lloyds Bank building. Collectively, these 2 applications are considered a comprehensive approach to redevelopment of the site. The public and planning benefits of this particular scheme, as outlined by your officers, are considered quite clear and substantial. Firstly, the proposals would bring a currently vacant site back into use and deliver much needed housing within Billericay Town Centre. As we are all quite aware, there's a pressing need for housing both within Basildon but also nationwide, and this site offers an incredible opportunity to deliver family-sized housing within a town centre location. Secondly, from an economic perspective, the proposals will clearly create new and capital investment within the local area, create new construction jobs in the community, and most substantially deliver broader town centre benefits generated through increased footfall and local expenditure at local businesses. Environmentally, the scheme protects and enhances the existing tree belt around the perimeter of the site, and the removal of the surface tarmac area is actually considered a benefit to the long-term health of those trees and improves surface drainage infiltration. As you'll note within the officer's report, the architectural design is strongly supported, noting the design is in keeping with the guidance advocated in the Billericay Conservation Area Management Plan. Each family home has been well designed to meet modern living standards, including rear gardens, and has been specifically designed to mitigate against any potential amenity impacts to neighboring residents and properties. We can very much appreciate the concern that has been raised by local residents and the Billericay Town Council in response to the application. We note there have been concerns raised around access, privacy, and overdevelopment. Whilst we acknowledge these concerns, we would like to assure members that our design team have taken the utmost care alongside your officers to ensure these concerns have been fully addressed. To conclude, and as outlined within your officer's report, the proposed development is considered to be fully compliant with local policy and design guidance, and has resulted in your officer's recommendation for approval this evening. We thank members for granting us this opportunity to address yourselves, and we hope members can support our application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Can I now call upon Lewis Knight, please? You have 3 minutes, thank you.
Thank you. So I live on the first floor of Squire House, so I'm in a unique position where me and my partner completely overlook the site for these dwellings. And so just for some points of clarification there that I can give kind of clarity on, the Rose Lane is an extremely narrow lane. You cannot get there's no way you could get 2 cars in it at the same time. Currently, where the construction has already started within the Lloyds building for refurbishments, they have sectioned out where the houses are going to be with temporary gating. The waste disposal units and the bin men, etc., have on multiple occasions now had to drive down, move the temporary fencing out of the way to be able to manoeuvre their vehicles to actually collect all the waste. Without being able to move those fencing, there is no way that would be done without, again, reversing back onto the highway, which is, as someone that lives directly next door, is a very foot traffic heavy area. People are crossing across that lane all the time, and cars having 9 more dwellings worth of people coming in and out of that, plus delivery drivers, plus the current construction work, etc. It will be considerably more aggressive. So so since that's gone on, and then for the apartments we've had where we have the complete overview, how you could fit 2 3-storey houses, 2 gardens, 3 car park spaces, bike storage units, waste storage units, all crammed into one area is completely baffling and just very clear overdevelopment. I've invited councillors to come and up to my apartment balcony and overlook the site. You would have a very clear overview of the entire place, and you could fit in one house in there with kind of actual breathing room to have children and coming in and out, delivery drivers, all of the extras is unbelievable. On the on the point of the area needing housing in the building that we live in, obviously developed by Clara Homes themselves, there's a claim that Billericay High Street needs houses. There was 2 2-bedroom apartments in our building, specifically one below us, that was unsold for months. So there isn't clearly like that absolute desperation, because people would have bought those as well, because those were suitable for families. It's one of 3 applications on the site that haven't all been put in within one application. They've very clearly been done separately so that each one can be assessed without a full look at this complete overdevelopment of the entire area being looked at. If it was put forward to you as one application, you would all be, I doubt it would have even got to this stage because of the clear overdevelopment. And then, so basically just and also because of the housing, the apartments that have been approved above us, next to us, the other application we'll be talking later, which is next to us, and then the dwellings in front of us, the 2 houses, sorry, I lost my train of thought now.
I remind you that you've had your 3 minutes, so can you just quickly
I'll finish up here.
Finish.
We'll have 3 construction sites going on to the left of us, above us, in front of us, for however long that takes, and then it'll be the same for the Rose Lane dwellings. They'll be driving through construction sites, they'll be looking at construction sites. We will be living in a large construction site. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Can I call Councillor Schrader, please?
Thank you. Mr. Knight said Rose Lane is extremely narrow. Members will note an extant permission granted just last month for development of 3 self-contained residential units. You now have this application for 2 semi-detached houses, and item 6 on your agenda is a further application to increase the residential units in the old bank from 3 to 7. So with the June permission in the bank, the developer returns for a second bite of the cherry, looking to chance their arm and see if they can max out the site. Everything pushed to the limit of relevant tolerances. I tend to agree with the Town Council, the Residents Association and many nearby residents, all of whom feel these proposals amount to overdevelopment, intensifying the density to a point that is, whilst probably just policy compliant, likely to impact residential amenity and be detrimental to the Billericay Conservation Area. My particular concern here, unfortunately, is highway safety. I say unfortunately because, as usual, and new members on the committee will grow accustomed to hearing this, there are no objections from highways, yet I and my county colleague Richard Moore have been fighting a pitted battle with highways for some time over vehicles constantly blocking the entrance to Rose Lane. I do mean constantly. Residents' concerns mentioned in the report that this will further inhibit the free flow of access to Rose Lane are, in my view, well-founded. How could it not? The increase in vehicular traffic alone could hardly do otherwise. The lack of any turning circle makes it an obvious recipe for disaster. This is acknowledged at 5.4.7, but no solution is proposed or sought. New residents, their visitors and delivery drivers will inevitably park on Rose Lane, inevitably blocking it, or potentially having to reverse onto the high street, which is a criminal offence, by the way. I've told Highways, and SEP have told them too, existing double yellow lines are useless, they're not enforceable 24/7 and insufficient as a deterrent. I don't see why the development shouldn't make a Section 106 contribution towards mitigating this when it's clearly going to add to the vehicular traffic using Rose Lane. Colleagues, I'm going to extemporise a little bit now. It seems to me you're in a bit of a catch-22 because it's very difficult to turn down an application on highway safety grounds if you don't have an objection from the local highways authority. But as Mrs. Lyons has explained, because it's a private road, the input from Essex Highways is very limited. But there is, I would suggest, a very clear highway safety issue with this application. Rose Lane is a private road. It is far, far too narrow. And the absence of any turning circle because of the nature of the overdevelopment of the site, they haven't left any room for vehicles to enter that site and turn around and exit the site safely. And I would suggest that either you reject it on that basis or seriously consider deferring the application. As we discussed at full council just recently, and as I said then, I agreed with 2/3 of that report, the Planning Advisory Service were very clear that Essex Highways should attend these meetings where necessary. So I would suggest that you consider deferring the application and asking Highways to attend, to give their input into how the challenges that are being outlined by the residents on Rose Lane can be properly addressed. Because at the moment, I don't see how on earth this site will function, and Essex Highways, because it's a private road, haven't really tried to address it even. So you have a big question mark over the safety of this site, and I think it would behoove you to either refuse it on that basis, or if you're not comfortable refusing it, consider deferring it and seeking more advice on how the safety implications on the site can be mitigated, because you've been given the clear advice of the lived experience of the residents both on Rose Lane and nearby in Squire House, and I think they're very clear. Thank you for your time, colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. Emma.
Hi. I just need 2 points of clarification. On the previous use of the site has been an 11-space car park. Obviously, we had more cars there using Rose Lane, coming in and out. We're now talking about a maximum of 3. And if they're the ones, okay, 9, I'm willing to be corrected, but 11 cars used to come in and out on their daily basis. Let's say they were banking staff. And I'm looking at the relevant planning history. No other proposals were rejected since 1974. And as it's a private road, what access is needed from the high street on a daily basis from other residents that are not the ones living in the homes? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this?
I'll just make sure that I ask for a clarification.
I can't allow you to speak, you've already spoken, okay? Do you want to speak on this?
I do.
We've had clarifications, yeah. Yes, just speak on it, yes. Councillor Harrison.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also had a point of clarification, if I can ask the officers that, and also that they answer Councillor Callaghan's points around the issue that Mr. Knight raised around the refuse trucks being able to get in and out of Rose Lane. I assume that Rose Lane has been measured up with the refuse trucks to ensure that there is sufficient room.
Thank you, Councillor. We did consult the refuse service, and like I said, they did raise no objection, saying that they would collect from the site as they normally do for curbside collections. I mean, yeah, there are refuse stores proposed for each house. I don't know whether they stop at Roselane. I'm sure the residents would know how they service the existing houses, but it would be no different to that. Sorry, Councillor Callaghan. Sorry, what was your question?
Just two questions. Did we have any issues with cars coming in and out of Rose Lane when it was used as a car park that are as material as Councillor Schrader has put forward tonight? And what access to Rose Lane would be needed by members of the public?
Well, I mean, members of the public should not need access. In terms of the highways, you'll see on page, I think it's 48 of the report, the Highways Authority's response saying that the existing use is already established for 11 vehicle movements from the bank, and no changes are proposed to the existing vehicular access, and given the former use as a bank, which is subject to a separate planning application, vehicle movements using this access are established. So the bank would already have rights of access over the lane to get to the car park. So from our perspective, in theory, this will be a reduction in vehicle movements because you're losing 11 car parking spaces and car vehicle movements from the larger commercial premises to this smaller residential scheme.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't got any points of clarification. I'm just going to go into my discussion bit now. I do have problems with this. I'd just like to bring up the fact that Councillor Callaghan brought up 11 car park movements, but this car park is being got rid of. There is nowhere for cars to turn. It's crazy. If you have visitors, you have Amazon delivery drivers, Sainsbury's, Tesco, or in Billericay, Waitrose, more likely, even though it's across the road. The delivery drivers going down there. There is nowhere to turn if they build it here. It's shocking, and I understand why highways aren't getting involved. It's a private road, but I think this is a particular incident where, after the planning protocol was decided at full council, that we hold county to task on this, because they have to come down and explain to us face to face why they don't think there's a problem at the end of Rose Lane going into Billericay if we build houses down there. It's just ridiculous. I'm not saying this because I don't want houses being built. I've approved houses before. I just see this as a serious problem with a highways issue where you're going to put 2 semi-detached houses on land which originally had 11 car parking spaces, where people worked there during the day, left during the day, enough room to turn around and get out. This does not have that. You have a birthday party going on. Yes, okay, you can tell your residents to use Billericay car park that's next door, but not all of them will. Some of them will go down there and park outside the house and block the lane. That's just what happens. I live down a private road. It's what happens. It's life. I know it's not a planning reason, but that's life. The other concern I have, of course, is its proximity to Squire House, and the new development that's taking place over there has been allowed, as well as the forthright planning application that was given only a few weeks ago onto the Lloyds Bank for 3 flats. And I think it's a little bit disingenuous for the applicant to split these 2 up. He's the same applicant, where they're saying it's 3 car parking spaces, but in the report you'll see next, there are proposals for 7 flats, 0.85, but one of those car parking spaces for free here is actually going to be used for those flats. It actually says it in that other report. So there'll be 9 car parking spaces there for flats and 2 semi-detached housing, whereas 11 car parking spaces before without housing. To me, it just seems absolutely ridiculous. So I would like to propose a motion to defer this application, to get highways down here, give them a kick, and see what they say. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, may I just come in?
Yes, of course you can.
Sorry, I'm really obviously grateful to councillors for providing clarification there, and but I just wanted to ask, we're talking about a high street which has over 200 spaces for parking, which, you know, for a point of clarification, does that necessarily mean that every delivery man or every person visiting would necessarily try to get down Rose Lane, or could they use one of the other 200 parking spaces on the high street?
Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Chairman. I will certainly not be supporting this application this evening. Listening to Mr Knight, as a local resident with that local knowledge, and from what Councillor Schrader has said, I just cannot see this being a good development. And the highway safety has been pointed out and noted eloquently by my colleague Councillor Myers. So I think that we should be rejecting it, or otherwise taking on the deferment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Councillor Mike Baker.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, do we have any information on the ability to turn around or otherwise allowed by the previous car park and the 11 vehicles positioned there? Because I don't think we've seen a schematic that shows us how that was laid out.
Thank you, Councillor. If I just go back to some of the photos, so at the moment there is the parking bays are laid out, so some cars would have to reverse into Rose Lane and then out onto the high street. So you can see some of the bays there. Well, you might not be able to see it, it's very faint, but so you can see where that blue car's parked there, so he's obviously reversed in.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you. So, I mean, if I'm understanding that photograph correctly, some of the spaces in that car park would require vehicles to reverse out at Rose Lane in the manner that we're describing with the new development. Would that be correct?
Yeah, they reverse into Rose Lane. They don't reverse onto the high street. They reverse into Rose Lane, then out in a forward gear onto the high street in the existing car park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could just have clarification of what the proposal is.
Thank you. So I'm putting it to the committee to defer this application so that we can drag highways down here to give us an answer about road safety. Thank you.
Do you wish to speak on it, Councillor Sargent? You're seconding it?
She's seconding it, but I think Christine has
okay.
As we've stated, it's not about getting Essex County Council down here. The lane is an adopted highway, so any movements in that lane are private between the users of that lane. If Essex had a concern with regard to the movement of traffic onto the public highway, they would be able to make any comments at that point, which they haven't raised issues with us with regard to that matter. So in terms of the movement of vehicles along this unadopted private road, as has already been said, vehicles can leave the application site and reverse onto Rose Lane and then join the public highway in a forward gear, and that would be the maximum required for this for the scheme. Even though they haven't asked for that, that was normally, if you have a development for a house, they would require vehicles can leave and enter the public highway in a forward gear, which they can do in this instance. The fact that we haven't got any additional comments from the highway authorities because they cannot comment on it, it's unadopted highway, and therefore it's a matter for the residents on Rose Lane to deal with, not for the highway authority. So the highway authority would say the same to you. And we've had similar applications. One of the kennel applications we had the same problem. The site was on adopted highways. So we can't deal with that. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason we'd have to get the highway authority down, because there's nothing the highway authority could tell you that it isn't already in this report.
I was just going to comment on that, because there's no point in having the highways down here if it's an unadopted road. because as you said, it's then part of the residents to do that. It's not part of the planning application. That's how I'm seeing it. Is that correct?
And I mean, just to be safe, that and not that we can ask for it, but the vehicles can leave Rose Lane in a forward gear and enter the highway in a forward gear, which if this was an application for a new dwelling house, that's the maximum the Highway Authority would require. It's the fact that the car can enter the highway in a forward gear.
And because it's a high street application, we don't have, am I right in saying this, we don't have to provide parking spaces for every property. Is that correct?
So the standards for parking, obviously there are standards for parking which are set out in the Essex Design Guide, and those relate to developments. In sites where you've got high levels of sustainable transport, i.e. buses, easy access to facilities, we can reduce those down. And in this instance, we've got maximum requirement for one of the properties, and the other one's got one car parking space, which is considered to be acceptable. Normally in these sort of areas, you're looking to from 0 to 0.5 per dwelling. And what we've got in this case is we've got 2 for 1, and one's actually at a lower level, but that's completely acceptable. The station's very near, you've got buses, and all facilities are within walking distance.
Thank you. On the proposal, we can have a vote on the proposal. So, all those in favour of the proposal, please show.
Say what the proposal is, please.
Your proposal. Yes. Okay. All those against?
That motion's not carried.
No. Okay, so.
Did you want to ask if anyone has any further questions?
Yes, I will do. Has anyone got any further questions? Because you did raise your hand, Councillor Myers and Councillor Sargent. Okay.
I just don't feel comfortable, Chairman, with people having to reverse from the High Street into, Rose Lane. I really don't feel comfortable with that. Whether or not we have got any jurisdiction over any of it or highways, I just wouldn't feel comfortable with that, because the High Street is extremely busy. And also, to say that there's other car parks, you know, there's Waitrose car park, and you can't, you're not going to park in Waitrose because you've got a 2-hour slot, and then you've got to pay for parking on the council car park, and then that's normally full up as well. So I just think that we have to be extremely careful, because I wouldn't want to be responsible for any accidents that might occur. Thank you, Chairman. And I know that's not a planning reason.
Park your car here, you would, so you'd come in a forward gear and you park your car here, you would then reverse out and you would drive out in a forward gear. So there's no reversing anywhere, you just reverse out of the parking space and you come in a forward gear, and then you'd enter the site in a forward gear and you'd park your car. So no way are we saying that any vehicle would have to reverse in here. We're saying that it's just that, reverse and then go forward. That's the only reversing we'll be doing, and that's normal for most residential developments. So it's not, we're not asking you to reverse the whole, the application is not seeking you to reverse from the high street. So I want you to clarify that.
Thank you, Christine. I think you indicated to speak as well, didn't you, Councillor Myers? Again, yeah?
Yeah, on the substantive, thank you very much. Yeah, so, okay, we've got the highways issue out of the way, we're not going to do that. The other issue I've got is its proximity to Billericay car park, main car park with residential amenity, and the amount of noise and car movements that happen there day and night, 24 hours a day. It just seems to me that sticking two semi-detached houses next to an extremely busy car park at all times of the day, it just stinks, and I think that goes against Basildon Safe Policy BE 22 and 21. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Mike Baker.
I've got two questions, Chair. The first one is, do we have any data on what the capacity is of the public car park that's located directly across the narrow lane from these proposed dwellings? That's the first one. Secondly, do we have any data on the usage of the car park in the evening, for example, just following on from Councillor Myers' point there?
So I don't have that information. As I understand it, I believe it's up to about 200 spaces, but I couldn't confirm that.
Emma?
Thank you. I just wanted to add my comments to the fact that we're looking at kind of worst case scenario in this, when if people move into a busy high street, they're probably less likely to be as car dependent as people who live in residential areas or people that live in remote areas of Essex. As the Officer Lyon said, that we have lots of links with rail. You know, if somebody lived on the high street, would they drive to Waitrose? I doubt it. So, you know, we're looking at a demographic that probably wouldn't put as much stress on the high street in terms of car dependency.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, getting off the highways point, the big thing for me, and as Councillor Myers and Sharada will know from previous years, and everyone else will get very used to this year, my you know, the big point for me that will sway me on this application is the efficient use of vacant town centre site. Unfortunately, this site is empty, as the officers said in their report. There is no appetite for it to be filled with anything other than residential. Unfortunately, that is the way of our town centres these days. And there's nothing I hate more than an empty site in Basildon that's not being used for anything at all. As I say, as members from previous years that I've been on this committee with it will know fully well. So yeah, unfortunately, this is the from the looks of things, that there are no alternatives for this site other than either being left as a completely blank, empty site that's no use to anybody at all, or this application that will provide housing that's much needed in the borough. So that will be likely what sways me on this application. I did have concerns around the highways issues, but I feel that they've all been answered now by the officers. So yeah, that's my two pens on the application.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? No? Well, we go straight into the vote then. All those in favour of this application, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? No. So this application has been granted. Thank you. Sorry, we're going straight into item 6, and it's a part change of use from the commercial business and service Class C to residential Class C3, with works including infill loft extension, introduction of a south-facing dormer and construction of a first floor storey rear extension, incorporating accommodation in the roof space to create 7 self-contained 2-bedroom residential units plus amendments to side elevation incorporating new windows, removal of an ATM and a reinstatement of front facade windows along with associated landscaping, parking and refuse storage at 89 High Street, Billericay. Gordon Humphreys.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, I would bring your attention to an update sheet where we've received one further objection from a member of the public since the publication of the agenda and a minor suggested variation to the condition, one of the conditions. So, as you've alluded to, again, it's 89 High Street. This one just shows the site outlined in red, so it doesn't include the car park, which was subject to the earlier application. The applicants do also own a separate car park, the south side of Rose Lane, which would be utilised for this development. So aerial photos, some further photos of the front. That just shows the front and where an existing opening of the former ATM bank machine would be removed and replaced by a new window to the frontage. And then we've got a view of the side down Rose Lane, just showing the blank wall with the existing rear projection. These are some views from the back looking towards Squire House on the left, with the back of our property on the right. As you can see, it's got quite a deep rear extension or rear projection. These are some views from the top of the roof of the back of the building, 89, from the fire escape looking towards the flats and down into the flats at Squire House. Some further views up. The one on the left just shows it from the back of the Billericay main car park, looking over the additional parking area that the applicants own. And then on the right is a view from, I believe that's Mr. Knight's flat, first floor, flat 4, looking over the back of the existing property. So there's the proposed site plan. So it shows the ground floor. I've got another slide showing the ground floor in a bit more detail, but that just shows the proposed cycle and refuse stores located at the back of the building, and the proposed parking for the flats. So there would be a mix of, I think it was 4 one-bedrooms and 3 two-bedrooms. 6 of the flats would have 1 parking space reserved within the overspill parking area that the applicants own off of the main car park there. So one flat would have no parking, and the reduced size commercial unit would have no parking. These are the proposed floor plans. So there's the ground floor. There's a small basement area which would be retained as part of the reduced size commercial unit along the frontage. There'll be 3 flats on the ground floor, and then the 4 further flats and the first and second floors within the extended and altered roof. So this slide shows the existing south side elevation at the top, and then the bottom slide shows the proposed rear addition on the back of the building, along with the new windows intended to be inserted in the existing blank flank wall, and a new small side dormer as well in the roof of the existing building. So yeah, front and rear elevation. So the one on the left just shows that as proposed, minus the once the ATM's been removed from the display window, and then the one on the right shows the proposed first floor rear addition at the back. And then we've got a north side elevation. This would be the view from Squire House, so you can see the extension there. There'll be 1 obscure glazed window at first floor, and then 2 roof lights serving the proposed bedrooms in the roof above eye level. These are some computer generated images from the high street, so you can just see the rear projection from there, and then the bottom one just shows it relative to the proposed houses that members have just approved as viewed from Rose Lane. Further CGIs from Rose Lane and as viewed from Squire House. And this is a slide just showing a 45-degree guideline rule of thumb from the Essex Design Guide, building research establishment guidance, which seeks to ensure developments don't obstruct a combined line drawn at 45 degrees from the nearest ground floor windows on neighbouring properties. So in terms of consultations, we consulted 41 properties for this application, together with the site notice and press notices. The consultation exercise generated 8 responses, primarily objections from 7 addresses, including the Billericay District Residents Association. A summary of the objections is listed on page 63. The key issues, key considerations for this application relate to the principle of the development, its design, scale and impact upon the character and appearance of the wider conservation area, impact upon the setting and significance of designated heritage assets, impact upon adjoining occupiers, car parking and highway safety, impact on the viability of the town centre. The principle of the development relates to a sustainable centre location, town centre location. The principle of an extension to the building is considered acceptable. A number of other properties in the High Street have been extended to incorporate flats in recent years, including the former Barclays Bank building at 69 High Street, amongst several other buildings as part of mixed-use residential and commercial schemes. In terms of its design and scale, the additions have been designed to respect the host building. A glazed display window to the High Street elevation would be maintained and improved following the removal of the old ATM openings that were associated with the former bank, enhancing the High Street elevation. The window insertions proposed to the side will primarily illuminate the new flats on the ground floor, the remaining retained commercial space at the front. The new first floor, 1.5 storey addition incorporating accommodation in the roof would be simple in form, set in from the north flank and west rear elevations, now lower than the roof of the original building and with a recessed articulation providing a clear visual separation between the old building and the new addition. The addition will be finished in a dark weatherboarding to the exterior walls and slates to the roof to provide a visual contrast to the brick materials used on the original building. The addition would be glimpsed in views from High Street looking down Rose Lane and from the Billericay main public car park to the rear. A new side dormer proposed in the original roof would be vertically aligned with the windows below and be of similar proportions to the gable window in the corner of the building. The loft works entailing a small area of flat roof to incorporate accommodation in the roof space would not be readily visible from any public vantage point. Following a slight reduction into the height of the rear addition, the County Heritage Officer raises no objection and advises the proposal will cause no harm to the significance of the conservation area or to nearby listed buildings, subject to the use of high quality materials that can be controlled by condition. In terms of the impacts on adjoining occupiers, we have received several objections from nearby residents, and there's a further one in the update sheet alluded to, mainly from residents in Rose Lane and Squire House, concerned about potential overshadowing, overlooking or overdominance. The application is accompanied by a daylight and sunlight assessment, following a reduction in the height of the rear addition, notwithstanding its depth. This is compliant with Essex Design Guide and Building Research Establishment Guidelines, designed to minimise potential for overshadowing and overdominance, notwithstanding, again, an acknowledged change to the surrounding residents' outlook through development on top of what is currently an open flat roof rear projection. To prevent overlooking the the single window proposed in the north elevation is intended to be fitted with obscure glass that can be controlled by a condition. Conditions controlling noise and construction hours are also proposed. In terms of car parking, as I've mentioned, 6 parking spaces will be provided for the 7 flats. No parking will be retained for the reduced size commercial unit. This level of car parking is, however, considered acceptable for a sustainable town centre location, as previously mentioned, where the parking standards allow for a reduction in car parking provision within sustainable town centre locations such as this. Cycle parking and provision of residential travel packs to promote sustainable transport were also proposed. Future residents of the flats would not have vehicular access via Rose Lane, but they've got obviously the vehicle parking provision off the Billericay main car park. A proposed build out of the pavement, again, as identified by before and requested by Councillor Schrader, has been discounted by the Highway Authority as before. In terms of the impact on the town centre, The site's been occupied by a bank for the last 70 years, as I mentioned previously, with no likelihood of it being reused as a bank. The site is vacant, no prospect of being reused. The less viable rear portions and upper floors of the building will be converted to residential as promoted by Council Policy TC6 that promotes residential as part of mixed-use schemes. And 167 square metres of retained flexible commercial floor space will be maintained along the shopping frontage on what is a primary shopping frontage. So again, on balance, and on this one, this is for 7 flats. Again, we've said it's a moderate positive benefit. The 3 ground floor units would be what's called M42 accessible dwellings, so there'd be a ramp leading up to the back of those properties, which would be a limited positive. Moderate positive benefit to the conservation area, limited positive to the setting of heritage assets. Again, moderate economic benefits, limited social, efficient reuse of the town centre, a vacant site is considered a moderate positive. And as before, change to the outlook of neighbouring occupiers is a limited negative, but it meets the relevant guidelines. The reduction in commercial floor space is again a limited negative, but would make for a more efficient reuse of the site. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions on page 76 and 79 of the agenda and the minor revision in the update sheet. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Gordon. Is there any questions on this? Councillor Myers?
Yeah, thank you. Is there no, because we've gone from a commercial unit to what was agreed 3 flats, and now we're going to ground floor commercial and proposed 7 flats, but yet you're taking the car park at Billericay, next to Billericay main car park, giving 6 spaces but nothing for the commercial unit. Is that allowed? Or is it just the residential space per dwelling and not per commercial unit?
Yeah, that's correct. There will be no vehicle parking provision for the commercial occupier. They'll be expected to park in the main car park or use buses or trains to get to the site as an employee.
Any other questions? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to be absolutely clear then, Gordon, if I may. The objection 1 raised here about the 45-degree rule, that is taken into account in your the assessment you've given this evening. Sorry to labour the point, but I just want to be absolutely clear on that.
Yes, Councillor, we did look into that. I mean, it's a guideline. It's in the Essex Design Guide, which is and also highlighted in the Building Research Establishments guidance. Let me just go. I think I did have a slide here, didn't I? Yeah. So it's taken as a combined 45-degree line, combined vertically and horizontally. So at the moment, the existing rear projection would infringe on a line drawn horizontally from the flats in Squire House, but it doesn't infringe it vertically. Following a reduction in the height of the building, albeit by 300 millimetres, and to the eaves, it now does comply with their 45-degree vertical line. So for a combined line, it would meet the guidance, and it is a rule of thumb. Thank you, Councillor.
Any other questions, clarifications at all? No? Okay, we'll go straight into asking Gardner Hanson, planning agent for this, to come up and speak for it. Thank you.
Hello again, and thanks for your time. Just 2 quick clarifications. So there's a comment around, the multiple planning applications. So the initial planning application was a subject to planning purchase agreement, so 1 had to go in. So that was just a clarification around that. And the reason for 2 applications here across the site is just to allow for delivery flexibility, discharge of conditions, those types of things. So there's nothing untoward. The entire objective has always been to bring forward this site cumulatively. So on that, to that level, as with the previous scheme, we've worked alongside your planning and heritage officers to bring forward this sustainable mixed-use development proposal, which again we're very pleased has been recommended for approval. The proposed development is for the partial conversion and rearward extension as outlined by your case officer, Gordon Humphreys. This will create 7 high-quality 1- and 2-bedroom flats in a very sustainable town centre location, and will contribute very positively to local housing needs and delivery. The site has been vacant since November 22, and following the closure of the Lloyds Bank branch, leaving the empty building and on an otherwise lively high street. To ensure high street benefits are retained, 167 square meters of viable commercial floor space will be retained, which our officers agree will have a positive impact on the viability of the town centre. Similar to the previously presented scheme, the proposals will also generate new construction jobs, local investment, increased footfall, and clearly the much needed housing within a sustainable location. The parent building itself is noted as being of townscape value, and the extension and external facade works have been designed through engagement with your officers to ensure the proposals mitigate against any impacts to neighboring properties, and to ensure the proposed building and extension will protect and enhance the broader Billericay Conservation Area. The height of the rear extension has been reduced as referenced to remain lower than the existing parent building and meet the 45-degree rule. This also ensures that no proposed windows or balconies would overlook any of the neighboring properties, and a very high-quality material palette will be secured via condition to ensure it is in keeping with the Billericay Conservation Area Management Plan. 6 car parking spaces referenced will be provided on the neighboring car park. This is accessed through the public car park, so there will be no movements along Rose Lane, purely pedestrian access along there to the rear of the site to allow residents to enter the site and the building. So we do acknowledge that the concerns have been raised around overdevelopment, similar to the previous application. However, these proposals have been demonstrated to be technically compliant with all relevant design, policy, and guidance, and therefore are considered acceptable in policy terms. To conclude, the development presents an excellent opportunity to create new homes in a sustainable location, make an effective use of vacant brownfield land, and we thank the officers for the recommendation for approval this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Can I call Lewis Knight, please?
There's a slide that shows the 45-degree rule. I would just like to actually come up to the screen before I start talking and just point to a place that I'm going to reference in my speech, if that's okay. Officers, can I?
This slide?
Yeah, so that's the one, yeah. Am I okay to approach and point to the screen? Yeah. No, I want to just point to it, and then when I do my speech, you'll understand where I'm referencing, if that's okay. Thank you.
Officers, would you like to address that before Mr. Knight speaks, or afterwards?
I mean, we've got a photograph that shows it better, just relative to where Mr. Knight's flat is. He's got a first floor flat, so bear with me a moment. I think, yeah, this view here. So if you look at the left, so that in the earlier photograph we showed the 45-degree line from the ground floor windows, and obviously Mr. Knight's flat is set back because where the his first floor window is.
So does that impact, if you drew the 45-degree line from there, would that impact, would it cross the 45 degree?
So if you drew it horizontally, as you would with the ground floor, it would infringe it, but vertically it would not. So it's a combined line again. So.
Okay, would you like to continue, please? Thank you.
Yep, so just follow on straight from that then. So the window that you can see furthest to the right is my bedroom window. So if you was to draw the 45-degree rule from there, which is the area that will be impacted here, because obviously an extension is going outwards, I can't see above me because I don't have eyes on top of my head. So the extension that's going outwards is what I will see from my dwellings. If you was to draw the 45-degree rule from there, it would, over 50% of this development would be in breach of this and would be past the depth line. So to carry on, so if the measurement was taken from there, over 50% of the proposed development would be too far past the 45-degree rule. Although it's a guide, it's still, I'm going to be looking at it every day. Clara Homes sold me and my partner Flat 4 Squire House with the #1 selling point being the large balcony that receives so much sunlight. At the time, in the light report, you'll see it's roughly 90%. When they submitted their first report, it was completely incorrect, and it took into account 2 balconies as one. It's never been one balcony. It's always been 2 balconies. We paid 11% more. I know it's not relevant to your pricing stuff. We paid 11% more for our apartment specifically for this amenity, as the apartment above us has the exact same layout to us and was sold for 11% less. Well, I believe they actually still own it, so you won't have an objection there because the developers own their property. There was absolutely no mention of the possibility of the building next door being purchased by the same developers to take away a significant amount of the light and the access to light that we specifically paid for a mere 18 months later. Not only will we be overlooked by future residents of that area, because there is still a balcony on the end with screens that have holes in. I have the exact same screens blocking between flat 4 and flat 5, which is my apartment and my neighbouring apartment. There's holes in it. We often have jokes that we can see everything that goes on in each other's apartments. The new access point to these homes is less than 4 feet away from my balcony. I can reach down and I can touch the top of the door frame. With 7 apartments going in, if they use the same door for this building that they do on R1, it's a very heavy set, very heavy door. It will be the same ones because they use the same construction as JW use for all of their construction work. And they obviously probably use all the same supplies, etc. It's an extremely loud door. There's no chance I'll have my window open without that being slammed shut constantly for visitors, delivery drivers, guests, and the actual residents. The currently unallocated Squire House extra spaces are used by maintenance people, the developers themselves when they visit the site, builders, members of the community that can't access, that always try to kind of take the mick and use our spaces because they don't want to pay for the paid ones. Giving away another 6 spaces is going to massively increase the issue there. If these 2 planning applications are approved, we'll have construction, like I said before, next to us, above us, in front of us. It was written in our leasehold agreements that we cannot raise any kind of objection against anything to do with our building, 81 to 87 Squire House. So it was actually written in there that if there's anything to do with that, then we couldn't raise an objection against that. I understand I'm running out of time. And then my final point is, the councillor mentioned your scenarios here are a vacant building or seven apartments, 2 houses. They've been approved a 3 apartment conversion with a commercial unit. Nobody objected to that. We were all completely happy with that, because if that was to go ahead, it's merely a conversion. Everyone would have been fine with that. But we're now talking about being covered in a construction site, completely taking over all of our dwellings.
Ask you to conclude, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Now I'd like to ask Councillor Schrader if he'd like to talk to us on this, please.
On a point of accuracy, highways may think build-outs have been discounted, but if they think that means I'm going to drop it, they're in for a nasty surprise. Colleagues, I shan't waste time rehearsing my previous arguments. I just impress upon members this is an important part of the conservation area. Anyone who knows Billericay High Street knows it's a mixture of very smart, attractive heritage assets and some fairly ugly 1960s and 70s infill buildings. Number 89 is firmly the former. It's a handsome red brick building dating back to 1890. Notwithstanding the customary wishy-washiness of the heritage officer, I still say the proposal is too large, and its excessive bulk will diminish number 89's townscape value. The council should look to maximise opportunities to improve and enhance the conservation area, something on which I'm sorry to say, and despite my best efforts, it has a consistently terrible record of doing. The committee shouldn't approve a development that will detract from its character and appearance. I will state, however, that I welcome the removal of the ATM and reinstatement of the original front facade. The scheme is too high. The report gives us chapter and verse on the 25-degree rule, and we've got some delightfully mathsy diagrams, but the report concedes at 5.3.5 that there'll be some reduction in light. And Mr. Knight spoke to this articulately, so I don't have much to add, but it satisfies the guidelines. Likewise, 5.3.9 employs similar sophistry around the relative lack of amenity space, and at 5.4.1 we get all the usual sustainable location guff around the lack of sufficient parking, because people who live in town centres always use trains and buses and never own cars. I personally fly to work on my pig. I'll leave it at that. I'm not opposed to the principle of a residential development here, but I say again, there's an attempt being made to max out this site by the developer, but the existing residents will be the losers. You have a recommendation before you, but the decision is yours. That's why we have a committee. It isn't just down to Mr. Humphreys, unfortunately. You can hear the residents, and you can use your local knowledge as councillors and exercise your discretion. I urge you to refuse the application. They have an extant permission. Let them build that and reject this overdevelopment. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. I'm going to open up the committee now to questions. Anybody got any questions?
Just to you, Chair, just a point of comment there. I'm going to look at this through the eyes of somebody that has lived in flats, in busy places, where the doors slam, it's noisy, and it's never somewhere that you live long term. So I'm looking at this for attracting new populations of people, younger people who may want to be close to families. You know, it's a good opportunity to get a younger generation into Billericay.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Sargent.
Again, I'm not happy with this application. I very much support the conservation area, and I don't think that this application does anything for it whatsoever. So I shall be voting against this application. And I just thank the gentleman, Mr. Knight, for giving such a good insight into what he's going to experience, and to my colleague, Councillor Schrader, for his, as usual, excellent rendition of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Myers.
Sorry. Excuse me. I'm all for reuse of vacant properties for further use rather than being empty for such a long time. I know recent changes in government rules technically allow Class E to go to Class C without having planning permission whatsoever, which is quite frankly baffling, but there we go. I'm not averse to this building being used for flats to keep it occupied, and Councillor Schrader mentioned the ATM being taken out and the glass facade being put back in will obviously make it more intrinsic with the area that it's in. I just have a problem with this extension out the back and what it takes away from Billericay's conservation area. I really do. I don't think it matches. I don't think it's in keeping with the size and bulk of the of the high street and the buildings that are there. I think that a conservation area is there for a reason, to promote and to protect its heritage and the building's designation, and to keep it in line with what the management plan says. I don't think this does. I think the size, the bulk, the density of it is just too large in this spot in the high street for this. I mean, I'm quite happy to see this go into residential. I just think 7 flats is too much. The fact they've got a building extension on the back to 1.5 stories with a loft extension in an area where it's predominantly chimney-fied rather than just gable-roofed. It just doesn't sit right in that area, and I think it will look really, really out of keeping. So for those areas about the conservation area and bulk density and overdevelopment, I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask the officers whether they recognise the 50% restriction, I think, figure that Mr. Knight raised, and also do they have any images of the balcony and the door location to which he referred?
I mean, I suppose we've not done an exact calculation from the loss of light to Mr. Knight's flat. There was a daylight sunlight assessment submitted, which demonstrates that the reduction in light is not excessive. I think what it is at the moment, Mr. Knight's got a very open outlook, because if I go to a photo, as you can see, so on the right, that's his current outlook. If you looked over the back of the extension, because that doesn't show the rest of his outlook that he's got over his own the garden and towards the trees at the back. So yeah, there will be some reduction in light or outlook from that perspective, but we're satisfied that it would not be materially significant.
Thank you. Anybody? Councillor
Sorry,
Baker.
do you have I think Mr. Knight, unless I misheard, mentioned a balcony. Not his, another balcony that would.
Yeah, there is a proposed balcony. Sorry, Councillor. If I just go back to, I'll go to the first floor plan, probably easier. So the top left. So if you're looking at the top, just shows the site plan. On the right is the existing bank, and then on the left at the top is the rear projection. There is a proposed balcony at the very far end, and it's probably easier to show it in the CGI actually, to be fair. Actually, you can sort of just see it on the bottom picture. Yeah, and then there is a proposed privacy screen. So actually that picture there shows it. So that's the view from Squire House. There would be like a 1.8 metre high semi-privacy screen. Yeah, so you've got the existing red brick as the existing projection in the first floor. Yeah, and the only first floor window there would be obscured by condition and retained. Yeah, non-opening above 1.7. Non-opening less than 1.7 metres above the floor level of that room. I think that serves a hallway to that flat. So that would be the view. Albeit, I should also point out that is set in close to 4 metres from the boundary with Squire House. So when it initially came in, it was slightly higher, and it would have breached that 45-degree line. And we also had a heritage objection due to its height, because they felt that it competed with the height of the original building, so they reduced it, albeit slightly, by 300 mil. But in doing so, the heritage officer was then satisfied it would be subordinate to the original building, and we were satisfied it then met the 45-degree guideline.
Any other questions? No? I'd just like to say, heritage conservation, got no objections. Highways, Essex County Council. I know, taking on board what Mr. Knight has said, but I'm very focused on housing, especially flats for young people. We're very lacking in that, in our facilities at the moment. So, though we live in nice little houses and flats ourselves, there is other people out there that haven't got properties. So, taking that on board, I'm going with this application tonight. I did ask you if you had any other...
condition. I just want to change the condition if that's okay. If it gets passed, just to make sure we're clear cut legally.
Well, I've got my legal advisor here. Would you like to? Yeah.
No, it's just condition 13 to add the phrase in perpetuity with regards to the window proposed at the first floor level on the north flank. It's not on there, so therefore they can get rid of that in the future.
Councillor Marge, yeah, that's absolutely fine. We can add that wording in.
Are you happy with that? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, sorry to make a qualitative observation, but some of this is qualitative. As a 25-year resident of Billericay, I respectfully disagree with the observations that my colleagues have made here on the impact on the conservation area. I mean, you can't see this development from the high street, and compared with what it looks like now, basically a cuboid of bricks with no windows in it, I think it's a substantial improvement. So I don't have an issue as a local resident on how it appears.
Yeah. And I also draw your attention to the minor amendment to one of the conditions in the update sheet as well.
We'll go straight into the vote now. There's no more questions. All those for this application, please show. Okay. All those against? Obviously there's no extensions, so we grant this application. Thank you. And that's all that's on the agenda tonight. Thank you everyone. Safe journey home.